Hi guys, Taxicothy here. I got an idea for this video by getting a message in-game from one of my friends while I was just going through and running hunts. I've been working on getting all of my weapons and armor completely power surged because I already had everything made from pre-reforge. So I decided, why not? Might as well go power surge everything. Anyway, I had somebody by the name of the Naster send me a message asking for some tips on Twin Suns. Now, I don't normally run exotic weapons because two reasons. One, I'm a style freak. I like to be able to transmog my stuff. So, unfortunately, with the exotic weapons, you cannot transmog them. So, being a style freak, I kind of work around it and put something together that looks good with the weapon, but it limits me. The second reason being, you can't bond it to a legendary weapon. So, since you can't bond it to a legendary weapon, you're just running that weapon. It does have one prismatic cell slot, which is a cell slot to put whatever cell you want in there, and then for the Twin Suns themselves, they have a finesse cell slot. So you kind of have to work around that, and you don't have the extra cells that you would get if it was bonded to something. I am running this in Frost Escalation just to show the max amount of damage that you can do, basically, with the amp bonuses, but do not base your full opinion off the Frost Escalation run. Frost Escalation doesn't really count. You do have those insane boosts, which is why I typically like to run my builds in Frost Escalation as well as a normal hunt and a normal escalation. And I've been adding Blazeworks as well, despite those nasty Styxians. So anyway, I'm running the Twin Suns, and in the weapon slot I have Impulse. In the prismatic slot I also have Impulse. You can't change the barrel, you can't change the chamber, you can't change the grip. But for the mod, I have the Extraction Catalyst. Reduce both ability cooldowns by 2 seconds when dodging through behemoth attacks. Now, there's another mod that might work a little bit better. There's Tactician's Magazine. Empowered reloading at exactly 0 ammo decreases the cooldown of both abilities by 4 seconds. That's probably better, considering I didn't have much of an opportunity to dodge, considering the behemoths were obliterated. But you can play around with this and figure it out. Regardless, I wanted my mag bombs to come back quicker. I have been playing around with Revenant as of lately, and I ran Revenant with the Twin Suns. And then I put on Skarn's Defiance for the lantern with reuse on it. Then I have the Dark Watch helmet with Berserker. I have the Mantle of Thorns torso piece with reuse. I have the Malcarion's Grasp arms with Cunning. I have the Chrono Treads with Pulse. Now, each of these exotic weapons has something that it bases its damage around. Twin Suns bases their damage around crit. Now, I say that damage over crit is always better. In this case, it's a little bit different. In this case, you want to emphasize on the crit because it's going to bring back your mag bombs quicker. And the mag bombs are the fun part that also do an insane amount of damage. So this build is running 6 Cunning, 6 Impulse, 6 Predator, 6 Pulse, 6 Reuse, 3 Berserker, and 3 Evasive Fury, which is tied to the weapon. Now, the thing about Predator, you'll notice I don't put that on very many of my builds. There's a reason for that. I suck at dodging. I swear my brain has input lag. It has to. Which is probably why I play so well on the Switch, because the Switch does have a little bit of input lag. Now, one thing I did like about Revenant, I suck at this interrupt. Revenant helped me get it. Revenant is a great way to have an interrupt while running repeaters as well. And since the Twin Suns doesn't have its own interrupt, the Revenant is perfect for that. And not only that, Revenant does a ton of damage. Now, I'm sure some people would argue that Assassin's Frenzy is going to be better than Reuse. But given the cell slots that I had available to me, it was more beneficial to run reuse and still keep my damage that I was putting on there. This is one of the few that I'm not running reduce. It just fits well this way. I tried a couple different versions. This was the build I liked the most, and I'll go ahead and say it is by no means meta. It is just something that I wanted to throw something together for Twin Suns that maybe people would enjoy. Because honestly, it's not just about the amount of damage that you're doing with the weapons. You have fun with it too. And there's just something so satisfying about just aiming your gun at the sky, pulling the trigger, and watching the behemoth explode. I do like that about the Twin Suns, and I'm probably going to keep this build. I will be doing videos on each of the exotic weapons now. I figure if I'm going to start with one, I might as well do the others. But regardless, this build actually turned out really, really good. And personally, I think there are better repeater options out there than running Twin Suns. I don't think that the Twin Suns are the best repeater option that there is. However, it is a lot of fun, and it is a good weapon. And honestly, it's a neutral weapon. It could count towards your neutral bounties. My biggest complaint with these exotics really is just the transmogging thing. You can work around it and create a build without having to bond it to a legendary weapon. That's manageable. But style freaks like me, you gotta have that style. You gotta be able to transmog. But I think that this was a very fun weapon, and I hope that this helps somebody who wants to make an exotic weapon build. The exotic weapons are not bad. They're not bad at all. And, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to having another one show up. We don't have very many. But the thing about the exotic weapons is they're meant to challenge your brain a little bit. They are good weapons, you just have to know how to build them. But that does not make them the best of the best. There was a patch note at one point where the Molten Edict got buffed. But it was buffed too much, so they nerfed it. So I'll have to play around with the Molten Edict and see what I can come up with there. But if I'm being completely honest, out of all the exotic weapons, that one is one of the better ones. And probably the only realistic blaze weapon option that's actually good. Most of the blaze weapons are not the greatest. But back to the Twin Suns, honestly, this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And try this build. I mean, yeah, I obliterated a Spore-Struck Charog on the Blazeworks. However, I did test it against Bloodshot Shroud. I did have footage. I did not include said footage because it didn't go very well. My reason for running Berserker over Reduced this time was simply because I didn't want to sacrifice any attack speed in this scenario. In this scenario, I wanted to get as many hits in as possible to try to get as many crits going to get my mag bomb to come back quicker. The whole point of this build was to get the mag bomb to come back as quickly as possible so I could keep using it. I need to practice with this more because I didn't utilize the dodge ability nearly as much as I should have, but it's nice to have that, especially if, say, you're running low on stamina. You can use that instead. And it does launch you quite a ways away. So it's pretty effective. My reasoning for running Skarn's Lantern while using this was because of the shields. I'm not used to running Revenant. It is rather new to me. I have been playing around with it more. I do get greedy with my attacks, so I was a little worried that I was going to get myself killed. Plus, the fact that Skarn's Lantern spawns those healing orbs is beneficial to the whole team. And it's another reason why I have no problem running Reuse instead of Assassin's Frenzy, is my Reuse is going to benefit the entire team. I do run a lot of public hunts. I only run escalations solo, trials solo. But when it comes to public hunts, I like going in just because it's nice to be able to help some people out, get the kills quicker. And sometimes I do like to sneak in when somebody's already been fighting something and hit it once and call it good. But let's be honest, we've all done that. I really hate fighting Koshai because of these interrupts. But this is one of those weapons where I was more confidently interrupting them. So I think I might be running Revenant a little bit more. Still haven't given up on my Tempest though. Regardless, the amount of damage that I am seeing in the Blaze Works with this weapon is kind of nice to see. So if this build seems interesting to you, give it a go. And if you've got any tips for making it better, please let me know. I would love to try some different versions and see what else I can try. And maybe you can come up with something way better. I'm not one that usually runs exotic weapons, so I'm sure the community out there has a little bit more input on those. I notice a lot of people running exotics over other weapons. So I'm very curious to see what people are coming up with. I decided to take this weapon into a Radiant escalation, particularly because, well, Revenant is Umbral. I wanted to just take it into a normal escalation that wasn't Frost. And I still wasn't completely max level on my repeaters yet. Now, they are at 19, but I wanted to take it into an escalation that felt fair. And Radiant felt fair because, well, yeah, there's the Umbral advantage against Radiant Behemoths, but as you can see here, I'm fighting a Blaze and a Frost, which, you know, Radiant escalation, it totally fits, right? Anyway, I wanted to bring it in here because it usually don't get very good amps in the Radiant escalation, and then I wanted to see how good this build is against Chronivore due to the Umbral effect of the Omnicell. And I didn't want the amps to really have too much influence over me. Every other escalation I do tend to get good amps, but the Radiant escalation, for some reason, I just have horrible luck. So I figured with that horrible luck, take it into a 10 to 50, see how it goes. And it was going pretty well. I did struggle with this Boreas a little bit, but Boreas is rough because of his ice shield, and especially when he is in a heroic escalation. I'm convinced that Boreas actually has very low health. You can't actually see the health of the behemoths, but some of them have more health than others. I know that Valamir, I believe, has the most health. Boreas, I think, is one of the ones with the fewest amount of health. Well, that didn't make sense. Health points, hit points, whatever. The only thing is, because of his Aether Charge state, it puts that shield around him. And the shield has to be broken before you can do any more damage. You do have a small window where you can do some damage to him as he's Aether Charging and growing the shield on him. He'll still take some part damage and core damage. But after that, it's the shield that you're hitting. And you cannot get lifesteal from the shield. So it did kind of affect me. Because when in Revenant form, you don't have any lifesteal. And then when you get your lifesteal back, it only works if you're hitting the minions or when Boreas' shield is down. The shield does not give you lifesteal because you're not actually taking any life off of them. Now this Rezakiri, I was dreading fighting him. Rezakiris tend to give me a little bit of an issue. But he got obliterated pretty fast. Kind of like the Savit that's not pictured here. But yeah, I was very satisfied with that. And this Chronivore fight went pretty good too. I have this big hatred towards his heroic version, but we're not going to get into that. I will be linking the build in the description of the video. I recommend you give it a try. Let me know what you think. And I really hope that you enjoyed. I'm going to get to work on the next exotic weapons and see what I can come up with. This is actually rather fun. Thanks for the idea, the Naster. If you're watching this video, I hope that this build is helpful to you as well.